What's up? I got an email recently from one of my subscribers. I guess you're in the United Kingdom. From what I read, you called me a mate. You know, we don't really call people mate around here. So I got no problem with that. Hey, go Olympics. So I'm going to take you out to my vehicle. I'm going to show you how I ran my amp installation kit or power flow kit. Then I'm going to cut it off and I'm going to show you on a table how I do the rest. So here it goes. Okay, so here we are at the test bench now. Now, I got quite a few different items laid out. Now this unit here is my stereo. I'm going to be utilizing this to send the signal to the amplifier. As an interim piece, I'm going to be using this right here, which is called an adjustable line level converter. On this end, there's 5 connectors. 4 are definitely used in every scenario or every application. The center conductor is a ground. That little symbol there, the line and the X kind of is the ground symbol. That's telling you that if you needed to utilize that, if you have an excessive amount of engine whine or sounds like there's a cat in your trunk after you get done doing your installation, when you depress your gas and your car goes like that, that means you got a problem with noise. This here connection, you can just add an addition, put it onto parallel right onto the ground wire of your existing stereo system. That will hopefully fix your problem. If it doesn't, then you can always go out and get yourself a ground loop isolator. But that's not covered in this video. That's a whole nother story in itself. Getting rid of noise, I could spend hours on. But like I mentioned, radio, we're going to use 2 channels on my radio. Okay, so if you're doing this with the stock radio, which I'm guessing that you are, you will need to locate either your front left and right pairs or your rear left and right pairs. Which it is that you use, it doesn't really matter. I usually suggest utilizing the fronts, and the reason why is because in some of the cars that are out there today, you can guarantee yourself your front channel will have full range signal, meaning so that way you're going to get everything that's going to be from the subsonic low frequencies all the way up to like 20,000 hertz. That's what you need, because if you have a system that has either a factory EQ or has an ambiance control, something like that, the rear channel might always be toned down. It might only generate mid frequencies or low frequencies or a combination of the two. So I frown on using it unless you're very advanced and you know exactly what you're working with. That's a different story, but to play it safe, always use your front output legs. So I got my front, left and right, rear, I'm sorry, front, left and right, front, right there. So right, there's my left. Duh. Okay. On my test bench, I have my powers and my ground. That's all I'm using as my signal for my output on my radio side. The line level converter, I'm just doing this test with a standard 2-channel amplifier, 2-channel line level converter. What I'm going to try to do here, well, not try to do, but I'm going to do, is I'm just simply going to convert the AC or speaker level outputs from my radio, put them into my adapter, and then I'm going to create a low-level preamp output. Now the reason why am I doing this is very simple. Okay, now take a scenario with AC that everybody's familiar with, everybody have seen. If you turn your kitchen lights on, you turn it on, and now all of a sudden someone's out in the garage and they turn on their power drill and your lights start dimming. Okay, all that irregularity in the AC voltage is very unregulated, it's very sporadic, it can spike, a lot of weird stuff happens with alternating current. So you want to try to avoid that. And that's what this thing is going to help you accomplish. It's going to basically regulate your output to a set preamp voltage, which is a low level, which you would feed into your amplifier. Now on this amp, you have your RCA audio inputs, left and right here. Then you have a high level speaker level plug, which means you would just take these speaker leads and just jam them right into the amplifier directly and accomplish the same feat. But the amplifier is going to amplify whatever goes in here or here. So do you want a good clean signal, or do you want to have a nasty distorted AC-based signal? For me, it's a no-brainer. So since it's my video and the way I show people how to do things, I try to always show you from my years of experience the right way to do things. These things are cheap. They cost anywhere from $10 to $30 depending on the quality that you go out and purchase. This is a must-have. Definitely very much suggest that you or anybody does that.
I did also bring some other stuff out here with me. If you were just adding a factory system and adding a sub into it, this scenario is going to work out just fine. I would tell you one other thing that I would definitely use, maybe two, just to make it a little bit more luxurious. But if you were doing a full system and adding 6 channels of amplification, you might want to invest a couple $100 into something like this. JL Audio makes them, Memphis makes them, a lot of manufacturers make them. This is a full system sound processor where you would take your front, your rear, your sub output. It would have its own self amplifier. It would create a line driver, so you'd have an awesome RCA signal, which is very strong, and it's going to beef it up. So typically, if you have something like this here, and you're working with a 1/2 volt to maybe 2 volts, this bad boy will convert that into 9 volts. So the premise of that is, if you get a hotter input from the low level going into the amplifier, you're going to get a hotter output. So if you have an amplifier like this, and the amp's 50 by 4, 50 by 2, whatever the story is, you put a nice nasty line driver in there like this, you're going to be having a whole lot more power, and not only that, much more clean power. And that's really where it's at. So if you're doing a full system, you can always email me for a recommendation, or just do some online shopping. This is a must-have. And not only that, but taking 2 channels or 4 channels, which is the most you can ever get from a stock system, you can't create 6. At least when you go this route and use that processor, this is going to have something which you can't live without, which is this plug right here. This plug goes into this telephone cord looking deal, goes into this little knob. This is going to be something you could either flush mount or surface mount, hide somewhere in your vehicle, and actually get independent control on your subwoofer's channel. That's a must-have. That's the right way to do things. So in that scenario, 6 channel, if you're going to build a good system or a very high quality system and you want a good foundation, definitely invest in something like that. Okay, if you're not all that hardcore and you're just trying to add a sub into your system, that's cool too. And that's really where I'm going to make my focus on this video, because that's what most of the people watching this video want to know about. So the radio we already talked about. This is something else. This is optional. It's not something that you need, but something that I would recommend that you get. What this is a pretty cheap, it's an LD10 made by PAC. LD stands for line driver. This is basically, again, going to take the signal that you're going to create from going from the speaker input to this adapter. You're going to have the RCA outputs. If you don't know what that means, I take it for granted that I know all this stuff, but not everybody does. This is what you're going to have. You're going to have speaker wires input, simple enough, RCA preamp outputs. Okay, this you would tie into the input of this line driver. It has its external power, so this will create a stronger RCA signal going into the amplifier down the road. So again, hotter input, hotter output, cleaner, less clipping, more regulated, more better. That's what you want. So if you got a couple extra bucks to throw on it, maybe not now, I definitely suggest investing in one. I'd also suggest, if you're not using a processor, get one of these bass knobs, which is just RCA fed in and out, which on the back would just have, again, just these. It would have a pair of males and a pair of females. So you would have one side which would come out of your adapter, and the other one would go into the amplifier, and that's going to give you, again, a frequency control. Because once your amplifier is mounted in the back of your vehicle, wherever you got this thing under your seat, it's out of the way, you're never going to really see it. It's impossible to turn your sub down independently from the rest of your system. So you might find that on one song, that the song has so much bass that it's like crazy, and then you have another one where you can't even hardly hear it. So to have something like this, again, what are you talking about? 10 bucks, 15 bucks? Totally worth it. Go get yourself one. Alright, so now as far as getting this thing wired up, I have my own little test bench going on there. My radio's powered up. What I'm going to do, since I'm only using one speaker, I only need to focus on one pair of the wires. For you, you're going to use a stereo signal to do the full job. Left, positive, negative, right, positive, negative. You would do both. So on here, just follow it. Okay, so there's my left positive. I'm going to tighten that down. Right positive. Right, negative. Okay. I'll tighten that one down a little bit better. Just the demo. Now that I've converted my speaker level or my AC output through this adapter, I've created this low level preamp. Now I have control. Now I can take this and I can manipulate it either with that sound processor, a line driver, that remote bass knob that I was telling you about. Okay, that's where it's at. And again, in here you also have signal adjustments, so if you're experiencing clipping or other problems, you could turn these up, turn them down. Once you have the RCAs, if you wanted to just really quickly Y-split and do something else in your system, you have the ability because you've already done your work from this end forward. And that's really it. So from the stereo, speaker level, RCA preamp into here, as far as the adjustment goes, the way I always do it on full range speakers, subs, well, subs not really so much. Subs I'm a little crazy with, and I don't do it maybe but what you might say by the book. But on the full range, which is really the musical, because subwoofers to me are audible distortion. They have no musical value because of the frequency that they respond to. So what I always do is I take my radio, I turn it up to the highest volume that I know that I'm ever going to put it to. Okay, so let's just say my radio goes up to 40. I usually use 30 as my highest point. I turn my amplifier up to when the speaker starts distorting. I cut it back just a tad. That's where I set it. Simple as that. So you could apply that to everything. As far as subwoofers go, I usually let the amplifier go as crazy as it can, and I like to get my controls from the source unit, whether through my low pass filter, my volume control, phasing, etc. Always from there. That's just the way I always done it. It's the way it's always worked the best for me, and I'm sure it'll work just as well for you. So when you're doing this job, try at all costs to avoid the high level speaker input. It's a really nasty way to feed audio into an amplifier. It's not going to sound as good or half as good as when you do it with a preamp signal. And try to use the best tools and the best parts that you can afford to buy to do for your job. I mean, if it's a real basic beater car, don't get crazy, don't spend a lot of money. But if it is your baby, this is the kind of car that you really care for, spend the extra money, buy decent equipment, so that way you get in there, do the job, be done with it, and never see it again. So there you have it. Okay, so we're looking inside this vehicle. Always run your preamp signal cables on one side of your vehicle. When they do, if they ever do have to kind of meet and cross paths with your power side, make sure they always make an X. They cross at 180 degrees. That'll get rid of any noise that might be induced into the system. So try to do that. Pretty straightforward. Power, ground, remote turn on, speaker outputs, crossovers, which are not going to be involved in this video. Straightforward enough, and I'm going to show you the power cables. Okay, so in here, you're going to want to connect your 12 volt constant power. Go as short as possible right into your fuse block.